I just can't go on not knowing. Even if you just ring the guards, let people know that you're alright.
A woman goes missing from her house in Cork. But what happened to her? Her husband Richard, who was on the video you just watched, claims he had nothing to do with it, and that she left to sort her head out. But the evidence points in a different direction. My name is Sean, and this is the case of Tina Satchwell. Today's case brings us to Ireland, and to the County Cork. And in Cork, there is a small seaside town named Youghal, where Tina Satchwell would settle down. A town known for its well-preserved historic buildings, reflecting different architectural styles, dating all the way back to the Middle Ages. It's actually one of the few towns in Ireland where the medieval walls still stand to this day. History is not the only thing Youghal has to offer. It offers beautiful sandy beaches and thrilling diving excursions, to name a few. Now today's story begins with Tina Satchwell. She's an Ireland-born native. She was born in Fermoy, County Cork on November the 30th, 1972. She was 44 years old at the time of her disappearance. She grew up in a large family. She had 3 brothers and was the youngest of 5 girls. It was a very busy house. She and her siblings would have a very normal childhood. They were always out playing with friends. Tina would then move to Leicester in England when she was just 16. She lived there with her sisters and her mum, and they all lived with her grandmother. Tina was described as having a big heart, and especially for animals. She had 2 dogs. One was named Ruby, and the other was named Heidi, and both were just as special as the other. She also had a keen interest in fashion, and she would often be seen in stylish outfits. And while she was in England, and now just turned 17, Tina met Richard, who was 21. Richard lived just a couple of doors down from the family, and the pair struck up a relationship. Of the two, Tina was the more outgoing and bubbly, while Richard was introverted. He was a recluse. He liked to stay indoors, and he was a bit antisocial. Richard's immediate family would not take too well to the pair's relationship, and in Richard's words, they were anti-Irish and would cut ties with Richard when he refused to stop dating Tina. He was so distanced with his family, he didn't learn of his mother's death until 6 months after she passed. Not too long after the relationship began, the couple would then move back to Cork. Before moving around for some months, the couple settled down in Youghal with their 2 dogs, and the couple were happily married 25 years when Tina Satchwell would disappear. Tina was last seen by someone other than Richard at a car boot sale, and this was in a neighbouring town, and it was on the 19th of March 2017. Now, a car boot sale is an event where people would come together, and it's in an open area, and they would sell numerous items from the back of their cars. And Tina and Richard, they were known to frequent these events quite often. Richard would officially report Tina missing to the Gardaí on the 24th of March, and this was 4 days after he said she never returned home, meaning Tina would have went missing on the 20th of March. So here's an account of what happened after Richard and Tina were seen on March the 19th at the car boot sale, and this account is solely from Richard. The following day, March 20th, he said he made Tina some toast and tea. He then made his way to Aldi in Dungarvan at around 10 AM. He wanted to buy some fish, and this was at Tina's request. And when Richard returned to the house, which was either 12 noon or 2 PM, Tina was gone, and there was some conflicting timelines here. But 4 hours for a bit of shopping, it's a bit of a stretch. Once Richard got home, he found Tina's house keys on the floor and her phone on the table. The dogs were home, but Tina was nowhere to be found. Richard said it was especially odd that the dogs were left alone, as she would typically bring them with her wherever she went. Richard then discovered 2 suitcases were missing, along with some of Tina's clothes, and $26,000 in cash that Tina had got from a sale of a house. Now, the cash was kept at home, and not in a bank, as Richard at the time was claiming unemployment, and if that cash was deposited to either of their bank accounts, that would have affected his payments. Now all of Tina's belongings were left in the house, including identification and bank cards. Richard then claimed Tina was depressed and worrying about family disputes. He said she left to get her head straight. He then suggested that she may have gone to live with her family back over in the UK. However, Tina's family have always denied this. Following on from this, the Gardaí done some checks and they checked the borders. They said Tina did not travel through any Irish or English ports. They do not believe she ever left Ireland. And this began the investigation. Hours and hours of CCTV footage from around Tina's home was reviewed, but she was not found on any of the footage. If Tina left the area, she would have been in a car, and Tina didn't drive. Her sister said she would have needed a helping hand to get out of her location unseen. So according to these details, Tina never left the house. In June 2017, Richard made an appeal on Ireland's Crime Call show, alongside Tina's aunt, Margaret Marr. And the following month, due to social media speculation against Richard, he agreed to take a lie detector test, but then later changed his mind during an interview on Cork's radio station, Cork's Red FM. It's a little bit strange for him to agree to a lie detector test, and then change his mind later on and disagree. And this was all in the public's eye. Maybe Richard's solicitor advised against it. In July 2017, Richard contacted the Gardaí, stating he saw 2 suitcases in a Tesco car park near their home, and they looked very similar to the 2 he said were missing from his home. The suitcases were checked, and they were confirmed to be different from the ones that were missing. Fast forward to March 2018, and Gardaí conducted a search in Mitchell's Wood near Castlemartyr in County Cork. And this was based on a tip from a member of the public. And they claimed they seen someone leaving the woods on the night of the disappearance. And despite extensive searches within the 40 acres of the land, including the use of cadaver dogs, no trace of Tina was found. Now additional searches were carried out in backwoods, but unfortunately nothing was recovered. And the Gardaí would also team up with Interpol in their investigation, with no success either. The case would go cold for a number of years following this. So the only information we have is what Richard says here, as she wasn't seen by anyone after he claimed to see her, not even by the hundreds of scattered CCTVs around the area they lived. There were plenty of reported sightings of Tina, but none of those led to any substantial information, so the credibility of these sightings were questioned. Since the disappearance of his wife Tina, Richard has done numerous interviews, even hour-long ones, where he describes what happened and how innocent he is.
Why do you think, Richard, that people think that you might be involved?
Well, I suppose it's the first thing that comes into people's minds. Oh, it has to be the husband, or it has to be the partner. You know? But to everybody who knows us, you know, they're no different.
My house was searched without my knowledge. And the Gardaí didn't find anything to suggest anything untoward. I live on a main street, so my coming and going's a scene. So, you know, I don't know why people are being so malicious.
Are you an innocent man?
I am. I'm innocent. I'm innocent of any wrongdoing.
But what fascinates me was how he describes their marriage. He once said Tina had a temper, and at times she would hit him, but then she would quickly apologise to him. He said he never hit Tina back, but that their marriage had issues, but they still loved each other. So what happened then? Where is Tina? Her family said it was so out of character for her to up and leave without telling anyone. They believe something sinister took place, and on the 10th of October of 2023, the Gardaí had a breakthrough. and Tina Satchwell's disappearance escalated into a murder investigation when a truck driver in his 50s was arrested on suspicion of murder, and they were taken to a Garda station in Cork for interrogation. The man arrested was not named. The next day, the unnamed man was released without charges. However, the following day, which was now the 13th of October, he was rearrested after human remains were discovered at the home of Tina and Richard Satchwell, and the remains were confirmed to be Tina by a belly ring and a Tweety bird tattoo, which then followed by the dental records positively confirming the body that was found was Tina Satchwell. And this was a bittersweet moment for the family and the locals.
Glad and sad. They're glad that she was found, but they're very sad really, and there was an awful eerie feeling there around last night and today as well, I think,
I think people are happy that they found her and she can be laid to rest, and we're happy about that.
Oh, it's very sad. It's numbed the town really. People weren't expecting anything like this, so it's very, very sad, and our sympathy goes to the family.
Leave her lie in peace now. At least her family have her back to bury her.
Tina's sister Teresa posted a tribute on Facebook when the remains were found, and she said, "My beautiful sister Tina, we have found you. You are with Mum now. I love and miss you. Give Mum a big hug. You will always be with me." And the man arrested was named, and his name was Richard Satchwell, and he was formally charged with her murder. When you see the video of him begging her to return, it makes you sick. How can you sit there begging and crying for your wife to return, knowing you were the one who ended her life? Sickening.
I just can't go on not knowing. Even if you just ring the guards, let people know that you're alright.
The evidence which led to the recovery of Tina's body came from an engineer who was doing a renovation job on the house next door to the Satchwells, when something suspect was found in drainage pipes, which was then reported and in turn led to checking the Satchwell residence. And Tina was then found under the floorboards, which were under the stairwell of the house on the first floor, perhaps under the downstairs bathroom, but this was never confirmed. The remains were found 1 metre under the floorboards, and they were encased in concrete and wrapped in plastic.
Within minutes of arresting a man on suspicion of murdering Tina Satchwell in Youghal on Tuesday evening, Gardaí erected steel fencing around her home on Grattan Street in the town and covered it with tarpaulin to screen the house from public view. Heavy machinery, 2 mini diggers, one equipped with a pneumatic drill, was moved onto the site the following morning. The first breakthrough, and it is significant, came last night when members of the Garda Technical Bureau found skeletal remains. They have not been identified, but Gardaí are satisfied they are human remains.
The remains have been removed to Cork University Hospital, where they will be subject to further examination, including DNA analysis. The family of Tina Satchwell continue to be updated on the progress of this investigation. A family liaison officer has been appointed, and at this time my thoughts and the thoughts of the investigation team are firmly and continue to be with them at this difficult time.
Richard done an interview saying that in the early stages of the investigation, he had given Gardaí keys to the house, and they could access it whenever they wanted. So I really don't know how the Gardaí didn't notice any signs of fresh concrete, especially in the initial investigation, or even the smell of it. The Gardaí have been known to drop the ball on numerous investigations in Ireland. On the 14th of October 2023, Richard Satchwell appeared before Cashel District Court in County Tipperary, and he was charged with the murder of Tina Satchwell. Bail was then denied due to the severity of the charges against Richard. In late October, Tina was laid to rest in a private funeral home so they could mourn away from the public eye. Her funeral car would drive through her childhood home to allow for my locals a chance to pay their respects, where over 500 people turned up to do so. And in March 2024, the judge assigned to the case, he warned the police that the case was at risk of being struck unless the bulk of evidence was served, and a deadline of 2 weeks was given. And thankfully, the evidence was presented and Richard will be sent forward for trial for the murder of his wife, Tina Satchwell. As the case is still ongoing, the cause of Tina's murder has not yet been released, and the details of her demise will be brought forward when the trial begins. This case shocked the Irish public and was also extensively covered in international media due to the shocking events that unfolded. The Gardaí could have closed this case from the start if they had been more thorough in their initial investigation efforts, which in turn would have saved countless hours and money looking for Tina, when the whole time she was actually right under our noses. Or perhaps Tina was hidden somewhere and brought off the property before she was even reported missing, and Richard then buried her in the house later when the heat of the initial investigation died down. After all, he didn't report her missing for 4 days. He had loads of time to tighten his loose ends. We may never find out why Richard killed Tina, but we can relax knowing Richard will never sleep outside of them 4 walls. There is a fantastic interview on Red FM where Neil Prenderville interviews Richard 6 years ago. He covers every inch of what Richard said on Tina and the case. It's very, very good. I'll put the link to it in the description if you want to go have a look. Tina's family left us with a statement which really puts into words how a loved one's life can change in seconds. And all we are left with is pictures and memories. The family said, "Tina, if you knew the last time we met was going to be our last, we would have hugged you extra tight." As the case unravels, I'm sure a lot more will come to light, especially when the trial begins. Until then, thoughts go out to the family and friends of Tina Satchwell. I'll see you in the next one.